Hi, I'm Levi Russell, and I'll be performing Why We Fight, How Vito Russo Took a Stand for the Gay Community During the Gay Liberation. Can you begin?
Yes.
I wanted to speak out today as a person with AIDS who is not dying. My family thinks two things of my situation. One, they think I'm going to die, and two, they think that my government is doing absolutely everything in its power to prevent that. But they're wrong on both accounts. So if I'm dying from anything, I'm dying from homophobia. If I'm dying from anything, I'm dying from racism. And if I'm dying from anything, I'm dying from red tape and indifference, because these are the things that are preventing an end to this crisis. On July 11th, 1946, Vito Russo was born in New York City into a close-knit Italian family. Before growing up to become a respected author, activist, and film historian, Vito would sneak out of his East Harlem home and go to the movies. From a young age, Vito sparked a passion for cinema that would carry on for the rest of his life. He quickly noticed a trend in the way that homosexuality was depicted negatively on film. From a young age, Vito was aware of the fact he was different. A cousin of his remembers him talking about Rock Hudson rather than Ava Gardner, but Vito never felt ashamed of his sexuality, and he embraced it every chance he was given. His family moved to New Jersey, but that did not stop Vito from sneaking off to a nearby movie theater to continue on with his addiction to the movie screens. As a teen, Vito would continue to take the train to Manhattan to immerse himself in the, at the time, underground and undercover gay nightlife. Vito lived a double life as an openly gay man in the 1960s, despite the risks of public backlash. And despite the counterculture movement of the 1960s, the general American public shared a distasteful and conservative view on homosexuality. June 28, 1969 was the start of a revolution. Stonewall. The Stonewall riots were the first time in history where members of the gay community took a stand against the police brutality that they endured and fought back for their rights. The Stonewall riots were the spark that set off the gay liberation, a movement that urged the lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender, or LGBT community, to engage in radical direct action and to take a stand and counter societal shame with gay pride. The Stonewall riots were the first time in history where members of the gay community took a stand against the oppression that they endured, and Vito was at the center of it all. You know, living with AIDS in this country is like living in a twilight zone. Living with AIDS in this country is like living through a war which is only happening to those who happen to be in the trenches. But this is worse than a war, because during a war, people are united in a shared experience. This war has not united us, it has divided us. They don't care because it is happening to the disposable population of fags and junkies. The media tells them they don't have to care because the people who really matter are not at risk for this disease. It isn't happening to them, so they don't care. And they're not the ones who have to have their houses burned down by bigots and morons, and they don't have to spend their waking hours going from hospital room to hospital room, watching those they love die so slowly, because it isn't happening to them, so they don't care. After Stonewall, there was a change in mood within the gay community. They were hungry for change, ambitious, and ready to fight. Vito became actively involved in politics, and his first political stance was joining the GAA, the Gay Activist Alliance, a group that used peaceful protestism to take a stand against the establishment that oppressed the gay community. In 1970, Vito was a key coordinator in the first gay pride parade in New York City. As a speaker, Vito would capture and maintain the attention of every person in an audience, spoke so calmly, yet so passionately, and he made sure you heard his message. I am so proud to be here with my gay brothers and sisters today to celebrate the anniversary of Stonewall. Today marks the beginning of future and change in America, a happier and gayer America. While juggling his new career as an activist with other odd jobs, Vito continued to study the media and cinema. Vito was one of the earliest people to recognize the media's negative impact on homosexual lives, and he recognized that media representation partially determined how gays and lesbians are treated. Worried by the negative impression that the media perpetrates on gays and lesbians, Vito produced and hosted Our Time, a series on a public New York City station. The show was the nation's first hard-hitting LGBT news segment. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Our Time. Some of the topics my guests and I plan to cover over the next couple weeks include writing, music, entertainment, racism, and of course, the AIDS crisis. But for tonight's episode, we will be discussing gay and lesbian history and how it has led us to a gay liberation. Throughout the 70s, Vito conducted research for his future book, The Celluloid Closet, Homosexuality in the Movies. As a lover of cinema, Vito recognized certain aspects of movies that others did not. The book was a collection of information on the ways that LGBT characters have been depicted on film, as either trivial clowns, twisted and psychotic villains, or simply just pathetic victims. Vito believed that these negative images correlated with homosexuality not only gave straight Americans a negative impression, but also members of the LGBT community a negative representation about themselves, preventing them from feeling pride in their sexuality. As an activist, Vito knew that the key to acceptance was visibility and realistic and sympathetic portrayals of homosexuality in the movies and in the media. The Celluloid Closet was released in 1981 and was a complete success. The landmark text was political, scholarly, and entertaining. And to promote his work, Vito toured the world and created a live lecture discussing the Celluloid Closet. Vito continued to spread his pro-gay activism from Sydney to San Francisco, while simultaneously taking a stand against the anti-gay media. How many people are dead in the last 2 years who might be alive today if those drugs had been tested more quickly? You know, all I read in the mainstream media tells me that the white heterosexual population is not at risk for this disease. So why for the last 8 years has every public information pamphlet and videotape distributed by establishment sources specifically ignore homosexual content? They have us panicked, not educated, panicked. Panicked into believing we deserve to die. This is more than just a disease in which ignorant people have used as an excuse to exercise their bigotry. This is more than just a horror story exploited by the tabloids. AIDS is really a test of us as a people. 1981 marked the beginning of a new era for the gay community. In New York City, Los Angeles, and San Francisco, a new disease emerged, affecting gay men to the point of death. Nobody knew where the disease came from or what was causing it, but quickly, more and more gay men were going ill. This disease was known as gay-related immune deficiency, or GRID. Symptoms included Kaposi sarcoma, which were skin lesions, and pneumonia. The disease was labeled gay cancer by the mainstream media. Hundreds of thousands of cases of GRID began to appear all over the world. GRID was renamed AIDS, which stood for Acquired Immunodeficiency Syndrome, and scientists found out that before being diagnosed with AIDS, a person contracts human immunodeficiency virus, or HIV, and that AIDS occurs once the immune system is too damaged to function. AIDS began to spread into other demographics, including hemophiliacs, drug users, African Americans, and immigrants. After being diagnosed with AIDS in 1985, and his longtime partner dying of AIDS-related complications in 1986, Vito felt the need to become greater involved in taking a stand against the poor education of HIV and AIDS prevention. To combat the negative representation of HIV and AIDS, Vito co-founded the organization ACT UP, a direct action advocacy group working to improve the lives of those affected by AIDS. Still worried by the negative impression that the media perpetrates on gays and lesbians, Vito co-founded the organization Gays and Lesbians Alliance Against Defamation, a group that monitored LGBT representation in the mainstream media. Vito found a way to channel his grief and rage into effective history-making activism. Someday, the AIDS crisis will be over. Remember that. And when that day has come, and when that day has come and gone, there will be people alive on this earth, men and women, black and white, gay and straight, who will hear the story that once there was this terrible disease in this country and all over the world, and that a brave group of people stood up and fought, and in some cases they gave their lives in hopes that people might be alive and free. So I'm proud to be here with my gay brothers and sisters. And I'm proud to be here with those I love, and I am damn proud to be a part of this fight, because you are all heroes. On November 7th, 1990, Vito Russo passed away due to AIDS-related complications. Until the day he died, Vito continued to take a stand for the positive visibility of the LGBT community in the media. Vito's activism played a major role within the gay community taking a stand during the gay liberation. From the dark days of pre-Stonewall invisibility, to the Stonewall riots and its aftermath, to the emergence of LGBT studies in the Celluloid Closet, to the formation of GLAAD and ACT UP, and all the way through the AIDS crisis. Vito integrated his knowledge of the movies and media into his activism, and continued to take a stand for the gay community until the day he died. Vito took a stand against bigotry, hate, and homophobia. But more importantly, Vito took a stand for the gay community, acceptance, and equality. And for that, he will be forever remembered. Thank you.